Hi everyone, I'm Imani Davis, and today I'm going to be talking about Chapter 5 of our textbook titled Authority, and I'll be explaining the influences that authority has on behaviors. Authority isn't just about extreme power like the government or like the big CEO positions that we would normally think of. It shows up in everyday situations. It's just whenever we assume someone knows more or is in charge, and we start to adjust our behavior without really thinking about it. And once authority is present, it becomes easy to predict how the majority is going to respond. Authority tends to follow a pattern. First, authority is recognized. Someone has a role, a title, expertise, or shows some signs of wisdom where obedience just starts to become automatic to the ones around them. People ask less and less questions because the responsibility shifts and decisions start to feel easier because someone else seems to be in charge. That's why authority can be helpful in some situations, but also becomes dangerous when people stop thinking for themselves. And all that comes down to how authority is used. Expertise and trust is there, that's going to be the best way to persuade us. Or else we need to resist and question authority before actually complying. There's a big difference between being in charge versus being trusted. Being in charge is just about the position and the power. People listen because they feel like they have to at that point. While being trusted is about credibility. People listen because they believe in the person and they trust their judgment. Authority based on trust leads to cooperation on both ends, while authority based on power gets you blind compliance. And matter becomes really clear when we look at why authority works so well. Authority works so well because obedience is something that was taught very early in our lives. We were taught to listen to our parents and then listen to teachers, follow the rules, follow the school systems, and over time, obedience just turns into an automatic response. So, as we grow older in any aspect, when someone appears to be in charge, a lot of people don't slow down to analyze. We just comply just because that response feels natural. The issue is that this automatic response doesn't stop sometimes, even when it should. And that's what creates obedience. The problem with that is people follow authority even when they're uncomfortable doing something, and that overrides their personal judgment. Then that shifts the responsibility onto someone else. And this is where the Milgram obedience study fits in. People were put in a situation where an authority figure instructed them to continue a task even when it made them uncomfortable. The important takeaway from it all is that most people weren't trying to hurt anyone. They were just responding to authority and doing what they were told. Responsibility started to feel out of their hands, like the authority figure was in charge of what was happening, even though they were the ones in charge of pulling the lever. Like the problem with blind obedience, even when people felt unsure or uncomfortable, many of them just continued to apply because they felt naturally to do so. And that's the danger of authority. It can override your personal judgment when the task turns into you feeling like you don't have a decision in the matter. But not all authority leads to that type of blind obedience. The type of authority people follow most willingly is credible authority. Credible authority is based on expertise and trust. When people believe someone knows what they're doing and is being honest, influence feels earned instead of forced. In those situations, people don't feel pressured, they feel guided. And that trust plays a huge role in how authority is perceived. One thing that builds trust is admitting your weaknesses, admitting your struggles, admitting your limitations. When authority figures acknowledge that they're not perfect, it signals honesty and builds a form of relatability. That honesty reduces suspicion and makes the authority feel more real, which is actually strengthens persuasion instead of hindering it. So once you understand how authority works, the next step is knowing how to respond to it. The main way to protect yourself from authority pressure is awareness, slowing down before complying, questioning whether the authority figure is qualified, and thinking about their motives will all help prevent blind obedience. Awareness keeps the decision with the individual instead of automatically handing it over. So when you think back to how authority showed up throughout this presentation, From automatic obedience to credible authority, these are the main ideas everything comes down to. Authority feels normal, which is why it often goes unquestioned in everyday situations. When people stop questioning, obedience becomes easier, especially once responsibility starts to feel like it belongs to someone else. This chapter also shows that people don't follow authority just because someone is in charge. They're much more willing to follow authority when it feels credible and trustworthy. And overall, awareness is what changes the outcome. It's what allows people to slow down and trust that they can make the right decision when the power is in their hands. And once you understand that, the bigger purpose behind this chapter all becomes clearer. And that's really the value of understanding persuasion. It helps us choose how we respond rather than just going along with things out of habit. Thank you guys for listening.